Oh, Johnson, we are live.
Okay.
Welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's next Super Stock Stream, January 21st, 2021. It's a very auspicious day for Peak Fintech, 21st of the 2021. Again, for anybody that's new, we're here to bring you those stocks which have that 10x to 100x upside potential. Peak Fintech definitely exemplifies that. The stock was 40 cents when it debuted on our live stream in September. Today it's making new highs. I think as we speak, it was recently $3.20 Canadian. So we're almost 10x, but look, we're looking for 100 baggers here. We're looking for those, Johnson, can you see that sign? 100 baggers only?
I see that.
That's what
you're doing, Jack, or is that one of our shareholders?
That's us. That's our new standard. Just we have high standards here, so we need 100x from 40 cents, $40. So you got a lot of exciting stuff happening. We're going to dive right into it, especially the pay. If I can pronounce the name, Wrong Bank. We're going to be talking about the Wrong Bank partnership. So again, anybody that's new, we're here again to bring you those companies which have that massive upside potential. Companies going after multi-billion-dollar market opportunities at a key inflection point and multiple catalysts in place for that explosive increase in stock price. We're going to do a quick interview with Johnson, and please ask your questions through the chat app. It's your questions that make these events special. So ask your questions and then decide for yourself if Peak Fintech is going to be our next 100 bagger, or actually our first. Johnson, you're going to be our first 100 bagger potentially.
Pioneer. All right, let's do it.
Exactly. So with that said, let's dive right in. The stock obviously is reacting very positively to this. The China Pay Wrong Bank partnership. What is this all about? Why is the market so excited? Johnson, what's happening here?
Well, first of all, Jack, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you. Yeah, we have in weeks.
Yeah, that's true. Really, really glad to be back. And I think the last two times I came on the program, we were talking about the deal, and I was saying this was the biggest deal in the company's history, or the most important deal in the company's history. This time, I mean it. Okay, this partnership with Wrong Bank Technologies, subsidiary of China UnionPay, is really, you know what? I hate to use the term game changer because I think it's overdone, but truly, this is a very, very important piece for us. When we had the vision of the Lending Hub ecosystem, there are certain things, certain elements that we felt were critical to take us to that level. And certainly, this relationship with Wrong Bank, having the ability to process payments, transfer funds throughout the Lending Hub ecosystem is extremely important for us. So I want to make sure that our investors understand the impact that this will have on all of our operations going forward. I put together a short PowerPoint presentation, just a couple of slides, Jack. If you allow me, I'd like to bring that up, and then we can take some questions from the audience.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's here we go. Okay.
Well, I can't see you now, but I'm hoping that people can still see me, and you can see my screen.
Yeah, everything's good.
Okay, terrific. Okay, so we're just gonna go and do a little bit of a history of the Lending Hub ecosystem. Okay, the term Lending Hub, you'll see that used in our press releases and our monthly progress reports, and I want to make sure that the audience understands that Lending Hub can stand for two different things. It can stand for the platform, the software. I'm going to use my cursor here. So Lending Hub is the software at the core of everything that we do, all of our operations in China. And when we refer to the Lending Hub ecosystem, that's all of the external components that come and be part of this ecosystem and surround the Lending Hub. So going back to 2019, at the end of 2019, we were in 3 cities. The Lending Hub ecosystem had 2 material suppliers, 16 distributors, 5 banks and lending institutions, 38 factories, and a total of 19,000 SMEs. So that was the Lending Hub ecosystem, and transactions, data flows through. I lost my cursor here. Here we go. So data flows through the Lending Hub ecosystem. We analyze the information, we perform some artificial intelligence, and we match the small businesses with the right lenders. And whenever there's a transaction that happens, boom, this gets transferred to the banking system. So the banks and lenders transfer funds to the SMEs, they transfer funds to the factories, the material suppliers, and so on and so forth. So we make our fees, we earn our fees once we match the small businesses with the lenders, and we charge a fee for that. So that's how we operated in 2019. Again, we're in 3 cities. Now in 2020, which just ended, we ended up 2020, as I'm sure your audience knows, we finished 2020 with a bit of a flurry. We made some very significant announcements with distributors, and I didn't put it in there, but we're on the verge of acquiring a bank software company. But this is just to give you a picture of how we finished 2020. So 2020, just going to go back here for comparisons. Okay, so again, we had 2 material suppliers, 16 distributors, 5 lending institutions, 38 factories, 19 small businesses. 2020, so we ended up with 19 material suppliers, 26 distributors. Those distributors include BDC and BJM. So these are the computer electronics distributors and the food packaging companies there that together brought over 300,000 small businesses to the Lending Hub. So now we finished 2020 having access to about over 340,000 small businesses. We also added with the acquisition of the Jinshar application, we now have over 60,000 loan sales reps that are constantly feeding leads, feeding small business leads into the Lending Hub ecosystem. We have 241 factories. We're up to 54 banks and lenders. So we finished 2020 in terms of a transaction processing speaking. We finished 2020 the same way we finished 2019, meaning that we matched small businesses with lending institutions, collected our fees, and then the transfer of funds was done externally by the banks to lending institutions through the regular banking system. Now, with the relationship with Wrong Bank Technologies, again, subsidiary of China UnionPay, now we have the capabilities of actually processing payments and transferring funds. This is a game changer for us. It is absolutely huge. So what that means for us is now everything that we were doing before, just like we did in 2019, 2018 with the small businesses, the lending institutions, the material supplies, factories. Now, instead of relying on an external bank to transfer funds to the small businesses and make payments to the factories and material suppliers, we now have the capabilities of handling everything. All of the transfer of funds will be conducted within the Lending Hub ecosystem. So what that means is that for all members of the Lending Hub ecosystem, SMEs, material suppliers, distributors, factories, not the banks, sales reps, we're talking for the deals that we did recently with the social media influencers. They're not on there, but they should have been on there. They weren't added totally yet at the end of 2020. But going forward, you're going to have social media influencers, all of these people. And frankly, the number of small businesses is going to go up significantly. We announced a deal, I think it was right before the holidays, where we started to get into relationships with e-commerce portals that have millions of small businesses that do business on their portals. So those will be added as well to the Lending Hub ecosystem. So all of these participants will now have virtual accounts, virtual bank accounts within the Lending Hub ecosystem. So all of those virtual bank accounts are going to be sub-accounts of the Peak master account. And what's interesting about that is that now when a loan is conducted, yes, we're going to make our customary fees for providing the core lending hub services. But now the transfer of funds, the funds are first going to flow to our clients' virtual accounts. And what happens, Jack, is a lot of the times, especially if you're looking at the supply chain participants, the small businesses, whether it's distributors or small businesses themselves, they need funding in order to buy from factories, from material suppliers. So what the financial institutions were doing oftentimes was they were, and instead of paying the small businesses that had qualified for the loans, oftentimes they would transfer funds directly from the banks to the material suppliers accounts or the factories accounts. Now, what's interesting about that is that if those factories and suppliers now have virtual accounts within the Peak Lending Hub ecosystem, well, the funds are not going to leave necessarily the ecosystem, the Peak Lending Hub ecosystem. So we're going to be able to get funds from the banks that are external to our ecosystem, bring the funds within our ecosystem, and keep the funds there and transfer funds between SMEs, material suppliers, distributors, factories, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the interesting thing about that is it gives us the ability to provide additional services. So by the way, each time we do a transfer now from a financial institutions, whether it's external to our virtual accounts, or we transfer funds between our virtual accounts, or excuse me, externally from our virtual accounts outside to an account, to a bank account outside of our ecosystem, China UnionPay charges the financial institutions a fee for that. Okay, so there's a small fee. It's not very, very significant, but with the volume, it adds up, right? So every transaction, China UnionPay makes a fee. And by being, quote unquote, an aggregator now of China UnionCom services, every time we transfer funds, whether it's inbound transfers or outbound transfers, we will share the fees that China UnionPay, makes. I should say Rongbang, but Rongbang is the technology provider, but the actual network is the China UnionPay network. I think we all understand that. So as I was saying before, now in addition to providing our regular customary lending hub services, we're going to be able to provide some value-added services within our ecosystem. For instance, right? So let's say a factory orders material from a material supplier. Typically, the material supplier will want to know that payment has been effected before they ship the material, and the factory will want an opportunity basically to inspect the material to make sure that the material meets their standards before the supplier gets paid, right? So right now in China, there is a bit of a risk, and talking to our partners, this would be an escrow service. There is a huge demand for that service, particularly when it comes to the supply chain. And we're going to be able to provide those services because we now have virtual accounts. All of these participants have virtual accounts with us. So we're going to be able to tell the factory, hey, the material has been shipped. You can send us the funds. We're going to hang on to the funds until you have an opportunity to inspect the material. And again, we're going to be charging both the material supplier and the factory for these escrow services. So there are a number, this is just one example, but there are a number of additional services that we're going to be able to provide and charge fees for. Now, this slide basically just to summarize how the fund transfer is going to operate within the Lending Hub ecosystem. So as I mentioned before, every Lending Hub client, whether manufacturer, distributor, retailer, social media influencer, or other, everybody will be assigned a virtual account within the Lending Hub ecosystem, which will be a sub-account of our master account. UnionPay will charge fees for inbound transfers, outbound transfers, and for transfers within our virtual accounts, there are no fees. Now, we haven't decided yet if we're going to charge fees for that, but in all likelihood, we will likely make it free because we're going to be able to charge fees for other services. Now, Whereas the PKK peak will be charged a flat fee per transaction. We will in turn, what I mean by that is, for instance, for every inbound transfer, regardless of the amount, Wrongbang is going to charge us, let's call it like 50 cents, 25 cents. I can't disclose this information right now, but it's not very significant. So we're going to be able to absorb those costs, and we're going to turn around and charge our clients a fee representing a fraction of the value of the transaction. So there's a huge opportunity there for us to make significant profits on our ability to transfer funds. In addition to that, as I mentioned before, because all of these accounts, because we'll have all these virtual accounts, we're essentially going to have at any given time a pool of funds that will remain within the Lending Hub ecosystem. And our banks, based on projected volume, number of transactions, and things like that, we expect to earn approximately 2.5% annually on the float of funds that is within our transaction. So once again, this has tremendous value for us, this transaction with Wrongbang Technologies. I think it's just the beginning. Right now we're working with Wrongbang on the implementation. I'm going to get out of this application. Right now we're working with Wrongbang Technologies on getting the system ready, to be able to implement the ability to transfer funds and process payments as quickly as possible. We anticipate the first transactions to occur by the second quarter of 2021.
Okay, Jonathan, so I guess we're getting some comments here from the audience. A game changer. They're saying this is an understatement now with this new movement. So here's okay. So the thing I was going to ask you, which was the number one questions that you addressed, is what percentage are you going to capture of this? All the money that floats in, and you said 2.5%.
No, yeah, 2.5% is what we earn in terms of, call it interest, right, on funds held within our master account. So
That's
our master, yes, our master account. Okay, well, listen, when you look at potentially, okay, the value of the transactions. Listen, just last year, I'm not even going by 2020 numbers. Those numbers are not public yet. So just in 2019. Okay, the total value of funds that flowed through the Lending Hub ecosystem was almost $1 billion, and we were just getting started. So So at any given time within 2021, 2022, and going forward, we're talking about huge volumes here. Okay, I'm not saying all of this money is going to always remain within the Lending Hub ecosystem, but at any given point, we expect the value of the funds that are going to be held within that account to be in the billions of dollars. So
we're looking at, so in theory, this would have been 25 million revenues you would have made last year if you had this in place. So now you're going to have, and this is all pure profit essentially.
Well,
not
pure.
It's very high margin.
High margins, yes. We are splitting some of those fees with Wrongbang, right? Okay, so that's part of the partnership that we have with them, right? So the fees that we're charging, the interest rate actually, I'd have to get back to. We're still finalizing the agreement, but I'm pretty sure that most of the interest, the 2.5%, is our take. The transaction fees are going to be shared with Wrongbang.
Oh, I actually, I don't know which one is more. Probably, I'm assuming the interest, that 2.5% is the big money, but the transaction, those little fees, they add up.
The little fees can add up very, very quickly. Right now, this is still very, very early on. We're talking about finalizing really, the terms. We're looking at projections with Wrongbang Technologies. We're running some projections, even ourselves internally. We'll have a much better idea probably in the next couple of months. Right now, we're working on the technological integration of the systems. We're talking about API plugins with China UnionPay. It's serious stuff. It's going to require some time. We have to make sure. Our systems are secure already. But there's going to be a learning curve for a technical team, basically, to be able to get caught up. And we're getting all of the support though from Wrong Bank Technologies in that regard.
Okay, so this is okay. This is actually pretty significant. So 2.5% is what you can get. You can capture of the transactions flowing through your system. You're saying you did $1 billion last year that flowed through the system.
It wasn't. No, that was not last year. That was 2019. 2019, we got close to $1 billion in total transaction processing, and we're talking supply chain transactions. We're talking transactions that the loans that we facilitate ourselves through our lending institution. So everything combined was near $1 billion. So we expect it to be more in 2020, and certainly more in 2021. And again, we expect the fund transfer capabilities to be implemented in the second half of this year. Well, before the second half of this year, so second quarter. And going forward, we'll see how many transactions we end up doing in 2021. But certainly 2022 will be the first year where we'll have a full year of this capability of payment processing and fund transfer.
Okay.
And
this is, so basically, the number, so it's about roughly 25 revenues per billion in transactions, which is, $1 billion is really not that much.
It's really not that much, honestly. Like, I mean, there's going to be like an in and out, right? Like, I mean, it's not like the money's coming in, Jack, and it's just sitting in our account, right? Yeah. So what we're saying is, like, I mean, the money will be flowing through, but what's interesting about this is the interest payment that we get gets calculated on a daily basis, right? So even if the funds are in our account, okay, and this is what's interesting about those e-commerce portals. Like, I mean, I don't mean to spill out their secrets, but you look at I don't know, like Amazon or PayPal.com. Yeah, like PayPal. Yeah, PayPal is a similar example, right? Like, I mean, PayPal, you have your PayPal account, okay? You have funds in that PayPal account. Yes, you make payments or whatever, but at any given time, right? Like, I mean, there's money in that account. What I was going to say about the e-commerce portals is, let's use JD, for example, right? So you have a storefront on JD and you sell, right? You sell products and people pay you by credit card. That credit card payment, it does not go directly into the shop's account, right? So JD's got the concept of the master accounts as well, right? So the credit card payments comes in and it goes into a virtual account on behalf of the client, but that account is controlled and managed by JD, for example, right? So JD will typically pay, I'm not exactly sure, if it's like, 3 business days, 4 businesses, but you understand what I'm saying, right? The concept of owners having to wait a certain number of days before they make a sale, and then before the funds hit their account, it can take like, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 business days. What happens between that time and between the time that the sale is made and the time that the funds actually hit, the shop's external bank account, so to speak, well, the portal is earning fees on that money, right? So it's a similar concept that we'll be able to implement. Not that we're saying that we're going to purposely, leave funds in our account for 7 days or whatever, but we're going to have a service agreement that is reasonable. Certainly the funds will flow into our account. They'll be there for a couple of days. And what's interesting, as I mentioned, is that we earn fees. The interest payments that we get gets calculated on a daily basis. So even if the funds are in our account for a day, 2 days, we will earn some fees on them.
Okay. So really at this point, with this element now in place, you really have, you have the whole, this is kind of the holy grail of the whole financial services industry. Everybody wants that float. They want to get that percentage of the transaction so they can, it's like the toll bridge. You collect.
Right. Exactly. What we say at Peak is that you see the Lending Hub ecosystem. I talked about the vision for the Lending Hub, right? So we're both the gatekeepers and the air traffic controllers, right? So everything flows to the Lending Hub. We have all of the data coming from distributors, factories, small businesses, and everything else. We're on the verge of acquiring banking software. By the way, everything that we do is very strategic. There's a reason, and it ought to become apparent over the next few months why the acquisition of Jonki software is so important for us, right?
This
so
is the
now,
AI, right? This is the AI.
it's the AI banking software, right? Okay, so this is software basically that allows the banks to implement their lending criteria and everything else and process transactions, right? So this will eventually be something that's going to be, well, part, quote unquote, of the ecosystem. It'll contribute to our data sets and give us even more visibility into all of the transactions and make our system that much more efficient. But what I was going to say is that by being this air traffic controller, everything flows to us. Now we have the capabilities. We actually control the transfer of funds. Before, everything was happening, the transfer of funds part was happening external to our systems, but now we've brought that in-house. It makes the Lending Hub ecosystem stronger. It gives us better control over our own ecosystem. There are a couple more pieces, a few more pieces now that we will be adding. Hopefully those pieces will come at some point in 2021. This was a major piece. This wrong bank technology, the ability to process payments and transfer funds was certainly a key component, but there are a few more components that are going to be added before the end of 2021 that will, let's say, complete our vision for the ecosystem, for the Lending Hub ecosystem. We're not there yet, but we're building towards it.
Wow. Okay. So because this, I mean, really, this actually is, I think, I think one of the comments was this would be an understatement to call this a game changer, because now, I mean, I don't know what else you have planned, but with this in place now, I mean, this makes the whole company. When you can capture a percentage of all the money flowing in, you get a percentage of that float. You have billions of dollars coming through.
It certainly adds a new dimension, right? Like, I mean, as I said before, Jack, right? I mean, the last couple of times I came on the program, when we announced the BDC deal, everybody was like, wow, like, I mean, we're talking like, online shops, like 60,000 or whatever. It was a significant component. Our ability basically to tap into that, the online shop market was huge for us. That was, at the time, it was a game changer, right? So when we had the combination of both online stores and external retail shops with the BJM transaction, with 250,000 online shops, that was another significant component of the Lending Hub ecosystem. Now we've added this piece right now, and at this point, it is the most important piece that we've added. Yeah. But there are a couple more. There are a few more transactions that need to happen by the end of 2021 to make us, in our vision, that complete ecosystem that we set out to build when we first launched the ecosystem back in 2018.
Do you any predictions you can make now, like in 2021, what you could do without, not assuming you get anything else, but just if you can, based on your existing operation, if you can capture that percentage now, what are you expecting?
I'm sorry, you were breaking up in parts, Jack. I couldn't catch the question. Can you repeat it, please?
Do you have any revenue projections for 2020 for this year with this new percentage capture in place?
You know what? Like, I mean, I know that people were expecting a guidance forecast for 2021, but obviously, like, I mean, we knew this deal was coming, and we cannot put out a forecast that does not. I mean, this is such an important contributor to our revenue stream, even in 2021. Even if we have this working for just the second half of the year, the impact is expected to be so significant that it would not be logical for us right now to put out a forecast that does not take this transaction into consideration. So we will wait until we have better visibility into what this could mean for us in terms of transaction volume, the float that would be kept, to have a better idea in terms of what we think we could achieve in 2021 for revenue, and 2022 as well going forward. So unfortunately, it's gonna take a few more, maybe like a couple more months before we put out our forecast.
Okay. and we're getting some questions coming in on what's happening with the Nasdaq application.
Oh, okay. The Nasdaq application is going very, very well. Like, I mean, the documentation is moving in the right direction. We're reviewing the Form 40F right now. We're expecting to submit that very shortly to the Securities and Exchange Commission in the U.S. Following which we will submit our application. Now, the only thing that was a question mark for us right now was the minimum stock price. As I think I mentioned last time I was on the show, we need to have a minimum of $2 US in order to qualify for the Nasdaq listing. Obviously, like, I mean, the stock has been performing well, so we're very confident that we are going to meet that minimum. So we will be submitting our application very, very shortly. There's a good chance that that will be done before the end of this month. After which we expect it would take 6, 8, maybe 10 weeks max for the application to be finalized. So we're still expecting the Nasdaq listing to be concluded by the end of March or early April at the latest.
Okay. Yeah, I know a lot of companies there's a lot of delays between, they got all the new IPOs, the Corona stuff. They got this.
Yeah.
It might take longer. Just in case anybody in the audience is expecting it to be exactly, March 31st. It might be 3 months.
Yes, it might be. Like, I mean, we did have we did have discussions with Nasdaq officials, and they did mention some of the things that you just mentioned there, Jack. They've had a very high number of IPOs, so they're very, which is a good thing, right? So they're very, very busy. Certainly the coronavirus, the fact that people are working remotely or whatever, like, I mean, has slowed things down. But as far as I know, from the last discussion that we had with them, we're still within those parameters there of 6 to 8 months, 6 to 8 weeks. I'm sorry, 6 to 8 weeks, 10 weeks maximum. So yeah, we don't expect it to be like a 6 to 8 month process. I know that I've heard that for some companies, like, I mean, the process has taken like 6 months, 8 months. But to be frank, some of those companies, I looked at the positions that they were in when they were talking about being listed on the Nasdaq, and they weren't, as far as I'm concerned, they weren't that close to meeting the requirements for the Nasdaq. We confirmed with the Nasdaq officials, we checked all the boxes. So it's just a matter of paperwork right now and them going through their review process.
Okay. What about TSX?
The TSX, yes, obviously, like, when we're a Canadian company, so an uplist of the TSX is something that we're considering, but the rules are, I mean, the TSX is a little bit like picky about, like, people discussing, like, going to the TSX when they're not yet on the TSX. So I don't want to say too much about that. All I can say is that we are exploring the possibility of going to the TSX as well. And by the way, Hong Kong.
That's the Hong Kong exchange. That would be
Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Yes.
That would make a lot of sense. So it really looks like you have now, and you mentioned something which really caught my. You have 60,000 reps now which are pushing leads into your ecosystem for the lending hub.
Yes, that's through the Jinshar application. It's not something that we've talked about a lot lately, but at the end of 2019, right? Like, I mean, we acquired this loan brokerage platform called Jinshar, and Jinshar at the time had relationships with almost 25,000 or 2,700 loan brokerage companies throughout China, and those loan brokerage companies collectively had 40 plus thousand. No, actually, they had more than that. Jinshar had about 40,000 plus reps that were actively using the application. So we kind of like inherited those reps. So they are submitting their loan needs using the application, and it's just another significant contributor, basically, to the Lending Hub ecosystem.
Okay, so really, I mean, it looks like now you have like the complete, which is the holy grail of the of the e-commerce business. You have like this flywheel going now. You have all those components which are feeding new clients into the ecosystem. Then you have you have the percentage you're capturing through the float. All that stuff is working together. It's like Amazon.
Well, I'm not going to talk about their model, but yes, Amazon does have their own ecosystem, and I don't know how they work with transfer funds or anything like that. But the central thing to Amazon, Jack, is I've mentioned this before on your show. It's data, right? So the components that I'm talking about here is the missing pieces, so to speak, have to do with data, right? Okay, we're feeding right now. We're feeding the ecosystem. We went from accessing data on 12,000 businesses, I think, at the end of 2018 to 2019, and to 340,000 plus businesses now at the end of 2020 that we have access to information on. By the end of 2021, we expect that number to go up significantly from 340,000. We fully expect to be potentially in the millions, depending on a couple of deals that we're working on. So yes, we have all of these things right now feeding the ecosystem, right? So lending relationships with financial institutions. Only 54 lending institutions. We expect that number to go up significantly with the relationships that we're making. Again, the acquisition of John-Key Software. John-Key Software, keep in mind, what they do is they sell software to banks and financial institutions. No, they're not selling to a Bank of China or ICBC or Agricultural Bank of China. They're not selling to the big banks. But it's not the big banks that we're after. The banks and the lending institutions that we want as part of our ecosystems, those are the ones that make loans to small and micro businesses, right? And for the most part, those banks, smaller banks, tier 2, tier 3 banks, local banks, regional banks, rural banks, lending institutions, they need software, right? They need applications. So John-Key has been very successful selling software to these financial institutions. So with the acquisition of John-Key Software, establishing relationships with those smaller banks, tier 2, tier 3 banks, bringing them on side into the Lending Hub ecosystem, that adds another dimension to our ecosystem. We continue to grow the ecosystem. Everything that we're doing, yes, transactions, float, everything gets bigger and bigger, but the data, Jack, the data that we have access to grows as well. Our capabilities for artificial intelligence, for insight, for everything else, these are the pieces that we're talking about implementing in 2021, which will take the company to another level. And I think our investors will see a whole new dimension to the Lending Hub in 2021.
Okay, no, so okay. So I want to ask you for an update on some of the trips you've announced over the past couple of months. But we got a question I want to get first. We got a super chat question from Kobe.
Sustainable competitive edge, which prevent competitors from replicating.
I guess he's asking, what is Peak Fintech doing different? How much of a moat do you have in this in this space, in the fintech space?
That's a very interesting question. Okay, we are unique and really what we're offering to the small businesses and the financial institutions as well. It's those two components are very, very critical, obviously, to the Lending Hub, right? Our ability to grow so fast should tell you that there is a demand, there is something that we're offering here that other competitors are not offering. When lending institutions do business with within the Lending Hub ecosystem, right? So once they lend to small businesses that are part of the ecosystem, the analytics, the data, the artificial intelligence, the key component, Jack, is the default rate. Okay, so these institutions are out there, right? So they're there to make money. They're there to lend money, right? They want to lend money. They want to earn interest, but at the same time, they have to be careful. They don't want to lose. They don't want to lose money. No financial institution, no bank wants to lose money, right? So what we're offering is the ability to quickly, right, very, very quickly, automated process where You don't waste time trying to find, first of all, the right business to lend to. The analytics, the artificial intelligence, it's not going to take you basically days, weeks to analyze a file. Everything is done instantaneously. Not only do you get quality leads, almost instant analysis, but your default rate drops by doing business with the lending app. So all of these things combine, and word is getting out, right? So now we can go to financial institutions, okay, and say, hey, look, these are the stats, my friend. These are the number of businesses that we have as part of this ecosystem. These are the stats, right? So what do you think? That's why we have this ability, Jack, to sign up lenders, a variety of lenders, by the way, okay? So we have banks. We have lenders who specialize in certain class of assets. We have lenders who specialize in supply chain. We have lenders who want a certain type of collateral. So any type of lender that you can think of is part of this ecosystem right now, which means that the businesses that are part of the ecosystem have a much better chance to get loans, to get funding, to get credit. So all of these things combined make us unique. And we have an opportunity right now by making strategic partnerships with distributors, with e-commerce portals, to capture a significant part of the market. And again, market is so big. We're talking about over 100 million small and micro businesses. And right now I'm throwing numbers in the thousands of businesses, right? So there's a lot of room to grow. And the projections, by the way, the revenue projections that we're making is based on thousands of businesses. So there is so much room for us to grow, and competition, there's enough room for competitors also to do business in that space. It's just kind of like asking, okay, again, I'm choosing the top three I can think of, Pinduoduo, JD.com, Tmall, Alibaba. You have some huge portals in China, Jack, huge portals. They all have millions of clients. They're all making money. The market is that big.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's again, I think there's plenty of room for everybody in this massive space, and the economy in China is actually right now, it's on a tear. It's really exploding right now. I think it's back to being the fastest growing economy in the world. Everybody else had negative growth or flat growth. In 20, China is booming. So let's, Judson, can you give us an update on the partnerships you announced, all the distributors, all that stuff over the last quarter, and also the social media influence financing those streamer/influencers. What's happening?
Okay, yeah, we did put out, I think unusually it's about a week ago, just updating people on some of the social media transactions. So it's going, right? Like, I mean, those transactions started to happen. There is a bit more technical integration work to be done with BDC. It's not a heavy system, but like, I mean, they had an all-encompassing system, right? So integrating, like, I mean, all their systems, all of their data into our system. We have done a few transactions. There will be news, by the way, in the coming weeks, just updating people on the number of transactions that we've done on all fronts: the social media, the BDC deal, and the BJM deal. So this is a scoop. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll provide an update. Transactions are happening as we are implementing the technology of those systems. So it's going well so far. We're very pleased with the rate at which things are progressing. I don't have the exact numbers right now. Coming out of China, we're in constant communication with them. I'm expecting to get some numbers probably later on this week. And once we get the numbers, we're going to put out a press release, just kind of like updating everybody. These are the number of transactions that we did, and we'll provide an update as well as to when we expect all of the integration work to be completed.
Okay, so no, that's great. So I think it's very helpful that you have the regular releases where you give people some, that they can kind of see the traction that you're getting, and they can kind of model out the revenue projections and all that.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see here. We have any more questions coming in. A lot of questions on the Nasdaq. That's a big question. Is always the Nasdaq thing. Let's see here. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, that's expected to be a significant milestone for the company. I understand why people are asking questions about it.
Yeah, there's 90%. Oh, we had some questions, but I think you've talked about this. Default. Would people know? I guess. I think one of the for anybody that's new, Johnson, that you're actually not the principal. You're not the principal in the loans, and yes, and also the default rates. In case for anybody that's kind of new to the story.
Yeah. To touch on what I mentioned before, in 2019, 2019, we second quarter, 2020. I'm losing. Okay, no, 2020 when the pandemic hit China, right? So 2020, we saw an increase. When people looked at our financial statements, they saw that our default rate provision was up significantly. Obviously, what that meant was that from the loans that we were doing ourselves, and quite frankly, from the loans that were facilitated through Lending Hub that were done by external lenders, the default rates went up. I should say the provisions went up because the businesses, having been shut down, they weren't generating the cash flow to pay back some of the loans, right, that they had that were outstanding. But for the most part, the loans were late, right? So the repayments were over 30 days, 90 days late, sometimes 120 days late. But our financial institution work with the borrowers, and the borrowers explain the situation. So it was just a matter of businesses getting back on their feet. And as you mentioned, Jack, a lot of the businesses, the economy in China has pretty much rebounded. So a lot of those businesses were able to get back on their feet, generate some revenue, and resume paying back the loans on a regular basis. So what you're going to see from the in the financial statements, what you're going to see is that the default rate provision will go down. I think at some point, my CFO's got the numbers, the exact numbers, but I think our default rate had gone up as high as like 10 or maybe 15%, which was huge for us. Historically, through Lending Hub, we had a default rate of I think it was less than 2% or less than 1%. We're slowly making our way back to that. And we expect the default rates to go back to below 2% by the end of 2020, and certainly in 2021 we expect that trend to continue, which again makes us a very attractive platform for lenders.
Okay, we got people asking about working with PDD, Pinduoduo.
Update on the agreement with the agreement with Pinduoduo. Right now, we needed to publish our app, so to speak, because Pinduoduo's got this app store for their merchants, right? So Pinduoduo, for those who don't know, Pinduoduo is an e-commerce portal, and they have I think they have like over 5 million shops on their that are part of the portal, and they have an app store, right? So they have an app store, and our relationship with Pinduoduo, to have access to the data on their shops, we needed basically to publish our application on their app store, and then those merchants were going to download the plugins to give us access to the information. Now we had until I think it was like mid-January, if I'm not mistaken, to finish the application. We finished the application. Right now, it has not yet been published on the Pinduoduo App Store, and that is because Pinduoduo and there's a link between Alibaba, Pinduoduo, JD.com. The government right now is really scrutinizing those platforms in terms of the accumulation of data that they have, and the government is saying that some of these portals, by the way, Alibaba, because they offer loans to consumers, right? So I don't want listen. I don't want to get on a slippery slope here, to talk about those portals businesses, but right. they have a consumer aspect to their operations that the government is looking into right now. So for the time being, we have not yet started to access data on the Pinduoduo merchants, but we're just waiting basically until the government finishes what they're doing right now, and then we will resume this this relationship to have access to data on the Pinduoduo shops.
Okay. Let's see. So, John, so what other kind of news what's going to be the big milestones in the first quarter of 21 that investors could look forward to next couple of months?
Big milestones. Well, I can't be too specific, right? But all I can say is that when I mentioned the key pieces, right, to the completion of the lending hub ecosystem, and this relationship with Rongbang being one of them, the ability to transfer funds, I expect another significant event to happen before the end of Q1. Okay, so that event will happen, and this basically will give us it will bring, let's just say it'll bring a new dimension to our ability to access data on businesses. So something like that. That's all I can say for now, but that we expect that to be a significant catalyst going forward. That should happen in the first quarter. Going forward, also beyond 2021, beyond the first quarter, obviously we're looking at the uplist. We expect to be a huge catalyst for us on the Nasdaq, and we're talking right now with potential financial partners in Asia. Obviously, because our operations are in China, we feel it's very important for us to eventually have a listing on one of the major Asian exchanges, whether it's Hong Kong, Shanghai, or both. This is something that we will be exploring as well, and we expect that to be a very significant catalyst for the company going forward.
Okay, excellent. Johnson, let's kind of wrap up. Our favorite question to ask you, multiple times that we always ask, and I always ask this because the situation is always changing, so there could be always a new answer, which is, in your opinion, right now, what are the top 3 reasons for investors to consider PKK?
Hasn't changed, Jack. It's always the same thing. Takes great people to build great companies. We're on the verge of building a great company right now. We haven't always made the announcements, but the partnerships, a lot of times the partnerships that are brought to the peak lending hub ecosystem in China comes with very talented people as well. Some of the people that we're working with, we've added some important executives, managers in China. We're going to continue to do that. We're looking at bringing some people here to the board here in Canada, to the management team. We have a great team right now, but we're looking to build that team. So number 1 is, yes, you have a vision, you have a plan, but it takes people to execute that plan, to execute that vision. So we have great people. That's the number 1 thing. The second thing is the opportunity itself, the market. Going back, we're in China, we're in the fintech space. Over 100 million small businesses. You look at how fast the company is growing. Okay, so there's a proven demand for our services, and the market is just tremendous. Huge market. That's the second thing. The third thing is we're undervalued, right? So if you're an investor, okay, you're looking for a company to invest in. You look at the management team. You look at the executive team. You look at the market. How is the company positioned? And thirdly, you look at, is the company undervalued or overvalued? Right now, if you look at comparable fintech companies that are trading on, whether it's Nasdaq, TSX, Hong Kong Stock Exchange, or whatever, you will see that we are not getting anywhere near the multiples that some of our peers are getting. So for those reasons, we believe that investors should take a serious look at Peak going forward.
One last question. I asked you this question, or I think I asked you this question when I first interviewed, but we got an audience question here from Michael saying, "Hey Jay, I'm a new investor. Where do you see the company in 2 to 5 years?"
Oh gosh. 5 years from now. Well, certainly, our vision of the ecosystem will be completed, right? So I see the lending hub processing a number of transactions. We have access to a lot of data. We're earning fees on the float of funds within the ecosystem. and we're dealing in the billions of dollars. That's where I see the company, and potentially we are in other markets outside of China, and we're certainly on several exchanges, all of the big exchanges: Canada, US, Hong Kong, China, potentially Europe as well.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so Johnson, on that note, I want to thank you everybody in our audience. We had a record turnout today. 500 live, 523 live just on YouTube. Doesn't include the Facebook. We're on the Twitter thing, whatever that's called. And so I think we're close to about 1,000 people today live. So, the audience keeps building every time you show up, Johnson. We get more and more people. Next time, we might be.
You know what? I'll try to come more often, Jack. But I have to be honest with you. We're getting to a level right now where we have to be careful, right? When we're dealing with bigger partners, and I don't mind. Like, I mean, we've always been transparent, telling people as much as we can. But now we're talking. We're getting into some strategic areas with wrong bank companies like Union Pay or whatever, stuff like that. There are strategic advantages, right? So I can't disclose, like, I won't be able to disclose, like, for instance, like, the fee structure, some of the revenue models, because these are competitive advantages, right? Like, I mean, so we will try to continue to be as transparent as possible. But I'm just kind of like warning the audience here that we're getting to another level here at the company where we will have to be careful in terms of what we talk about. And obviously, like, I mean, some of these companies, like, I mean, that we're dealing with, they're huge companies, and we can't talk too much about them. So just something to keep in mind. But always a pleasure to be here, Jack. And I will do my best to find the time to come back on the program and continue to interact with our investors and shareholders.
Thank you again, Johnson. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you all on the next live.